Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac should prepare for change. Maria Bartiromo sat down with Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin for a First on Fox interview where he spoke about housing reform. Watch this.
What I've said is I'm committed to housing reform and that we're committed not to leave them as is for the next 4 years. So we want to make sure that there's ample credit for housing. It's a very, very important part of the economy, but we also want to make sure that we don't put the taxpayers at risk.
There's a conversation going on Twitter, and it has been for a long time, about how President Obama needed money for Obamacare and would take from all of the agencies, and he took from Fannie and Freddie. Is that true?
It is true. They used the profits of Fannie and Freddie to pay for other parts of the government while they kept taxpayers at risk.
Let's bring in Transformational Mortgage Solutions President and founder David Lykken. David, your thoughts on this. Will it happen?
Yes, it's got to happen, must happen. We need to get rid of Fannie Mae as far as us taxpayers owning them. He's spot on. The fact that the federal government has taken as much of the profits out of Fannie Mae and used it and not disclosed it under the Freedom of Information Act. They're protected. They're exempted from that. As a result of it, no one knows exactly how much money has gone into government programs. And not only that, these are two fine institutions that are stable to our housing market and our housing finance system. So if you're going to take them out and get rid of them altogether, that would be a mistake. But getting them out from the federal government, absolutely, we need to get rid of them.
But would it mean disruption to the mortgage market, at least in the short run?
Well, that's the fear, right? The government right now, in essence, is subsidizing the mortgage market. It's making it, from a compliance perspective, difficult, but from an interest rate factor, it makes it more affordable for an entry-level person to come into the housing market. But this all has to be unraveled. This is a cash cow to the government. The revenues generated by both Fannie and Freddie are a cash cow. It needs to be unraveled, needs to be sold off, and government's got to get out of the mortgage business.
Put back, make it go private where it was before.
Yeah, but you run the political risk if there's any kind of disruption. If the conversion to private entities causes mortgage rates to go up or hurts the availability of a mortgage, that's political suicide.
So long as Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac exist in the private sector, where they were for years, we will
sort
not.
of, not really.
It was a government.
Sort of.
It was
almost worse than it is now. Well, at least we know who controls it.
Well, what Mnuchin's talking about, which is spot on, is getting rid of it as taxpayer owners. We need to privatize this thing. There will not be a bump in interest rates. Now, if we get rid of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac altogether, we'll see a half-point jump in interest rates, conservatively speaking. So that's not the plan. What they're talking about is a responsible plan of moving it back into the private sector. Let's get back to free enterprise. Let the free enterprise system work in housing and housing finance.
But my point is that with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, because the mortgages were essentially guaranteed and the debt was essentially guaranteed by the government, it wasn't free enterprise in the first place.
No, there was more free enterprise back when I started 43 years ago in the industry. So what we saw during the housing crisis, we saw so much of the government programs, government influence. It started with CRA back in the Carter administration, Community Reinvestment Act. That really started pushing the government towards encouraging housing and housing home ownership.
It's just like when people talk about we need to get back to a private market. We need to get. Let me finish my thought. They always talk about health care that way. We need a private market system. Well, we don't have one, and we'll never have one because of Medicare. It's the same. It's the same logic.
Point or counterpoint on that. Let me just say this: what other developed country has a housing finance system like America? You can say that's good, or you can say that's bad. So let's put that in correlation of home ownership rates in the nation. You compare us and our home ownership rate with Fannie and Freddie and HUD and all the others in there, and compare it to other nations. We're not that high. A lot of other countries have a lot higher home ownership rate, and even look where we're at. We're at near historic lows in the U.S. home ownership.
David Lykken, thank you so much for being here. More discussion later. You know what I'm saying, and you'll get a final thought, Dom. I didn't mean to cut you off, David Lykken. Thank you so much.